Hey everybody, I have a new movie that just dropped in the last couple days. It's available video on demand for rental only at this point. I'm sure it would have been in the theaters, at least on a limited release, if things weren't weird the way they are. But anyway, I'm going to be discussing today a new movie called Becky. Now, who is in Becky? This is one of those movies that takes comedic actors and puts them in dramatic roles, or at least two of the more well-known actors in this movie are comedic actors. Kevin McHale plays a father, and he pretty much just plays it straight and doesn't have his usual kind of soup-era snark. And then you've got Kevin James, of course, most well-known either for Paul Blart or for all the stuff he's done with Sandler. And he plays very, very out of character. And I will mention what he is when I kind of give a basic idea of what the plot is. And then your hero or heroine in this movie, Becky, is played by, and I gotta look her up real quick here. And Becky is played by Lulu Wilson, and she is probably best known for working with Mike Flanagan, and she's been in a bunch of his stuff. She was the main girl in the Ouija, I forget what the whole little subtitle for Ouija was. And then she was in his Haunting of Hill House series, and I think been in a few other things. In this movie, she plays the daughter of the Joel McHale character. She's supposed to be 13, and she probably is about 13. I think in real life she might be 14 or 15 now, and she looks age appropriate in this movie. She's kind of your average sullen, angry teenage girl. In fact, the opening sequence is kind of a montage where they're doing this mirroring of images of Kevin James's character, who's in prison, and his motions, and then her character, Becky, and her motions in school. So you're kind of getting this parallel line for about the first, 7-8 minutes of the movie, kind of showing that they're on similar, weirdly similar patterns and paths, and that they're going to obviously cross paths in this movie. So here's a basic story for her is, and it's been about a year or so since her mother died. It looks like cancer. There's a couple quick flashbacks that show us that. That, of course, increases her moodiness and her resentfulness, especially for the fact that her dad is getting interested in a new woman, and the new woman has a son as well. This movie basically has them all meeting together at a little lakeside cabin that the dad owns and is deciding to keep owning. He was thinking about selling it. He's going to stay there. They all go out there. She's happy to be there, but she's definitely not happy to be there with the new possible stepmom and stepbrother. Well, quickly we get the prison truck getting taken over and overrun. Kevin James and his cohorts escape, and they're in the area, of course, of the cabin. Now, if you want to know, this is getting kind of a lot of press about being a Home Alone but adult version, a rated R Home Alone. And yeah, there definitely you can see why those comparisons are getting made, because what you've got is, instead of the wet bandits, you've got Kevin James and his crew of Aryan Brotherhood, cons on the run, kind of invading this house with this family, and then she has to be resourceful and fight against them. Now, a couple things you need to know going into this movie if you think you're going to enjoy it. This is not an A24 style disturbing art house horror movie with a lot of dramatic truth, I guess, or dramatic heft. It kind of presents itself at the beginning like it might be like that, and I was kind of resisting the tone because it isn't that. This movie is, at its heart, a grindhouse horror thriller, preposterous story. There is nothing here that is realistic. The way the girl acts, sure, she might be that resourceful, and she might be able to deal with the things that happens to her early in this movie and overcome them and fight back against these guys. Realistically, probably not. So you have to kind of let all that stuff go. Think of it more as a over-the-top Really dark. There are really dark comedic elements, although it's played pretty straight. Definitely lots of horror elements, if you like that kind of thing. Kind of a very darkly comedic Straw Dogs, or there's even elements in here of Evil Dead in some of the moments where she preps herself to fight them. So I think if you take it more as a cartoonish, yet played seriously, a cartoonish plot, if you kind of let go of all the logical flaws in this movie, because definitely there's a lot of logical flaws, it's a genre piece. You can enjoy it a lot if you get to that point. Now, some strengths in this. The actress Lulu is great. She plays it really well. She kind of really crosses that line between surly younger girl to angry, revengeful younger girl. She has a lot of charisma in this movie. And then Kevin James is awesome as the, leader of this kind of white supremacist gang. And he has a few moments where he gets to spout off his stuff. But he also has some moments where he gets to very subtly, and I appreciate the subtleness of it, he really subtly gets to do some of his comedic stuff. And there is an especially cringe-inducing, and not cringe because it's silly, but cringe because it's really hard to watch, but also super funny. There's a scene where something violent happens to him, and I'm not going to say what, but as it keeps going, you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And that scene alone is really worth the price of admission. I will say this is a gory movie. The violence in here is, I think, all practical or nearly all practical, which I really appreciate. It has a level of violence that's actually really similar to something like Friday the 13th. So you think if there's a lot of bad guys and they're getting Friday the 13th type of violence played against them, then I think you can really enjoy this. Also, there are definitely some trigger warnings because this movie isn't afraid to have the bad guys be pretty overtly violent against her and against animals. So even though I don't think this ever is really as heavy as it might seem, this is not funny games. This is not your really harsh home invasion kind of show. It has moments that if you're not really into those darker, more violent kind of movies, that you probably wouldn't want to tread. For me, it's a really fun movie. The kind of movie that I think could gain some very strong cult status. Hopefully they don't go down a whole sequel line with this, although they could. I hope they don't. This is a great standalone genre movie, small, mean, lean, really, really great, fun, gory scenes of retribution that are very crowd-pleasing in this movie. And a few surprises. So for me, it's probably about a 4-star out of 5 movie. For a lot of people, it'd probably only be like a 3-star because it might be a little too preposterous or not really their cup of tea. I can totally get that. But if you can get into those Friday the 13th meets, some grindhouse revenge-y kind of dramas, then I think you could really find a lot to enjoy in this movie, Becky. See you soon.